All right, everybody, welcome back to After Effects Beginner's Edition. We are going to import footage today. So different ways you can import footage into After Effects is file import, as you can see, Command-I or Control-I if you're on Windows as well. You can right-click in your project folder and say import file, and if you have a Finder window open, you can just drag and drop footage in as well. And it'll accept most video files you'll find with After Effects and Premiere, and those, they're very open to different kinds of video files. Every once in a while you'll get one that doesn't work. You might want to check out a program called Handbrake for that, or VLC, to maybe convert files if you ever get into that situation. But right now we're just going to import a file, and this is from a GoPro, and this is just my daughter on a scooter. And you see here, when on my import, I can create a composition or import as footage. I'm going to import as footage because this is a very long shot and I don't want to create a composition out of it. Now, often you're going to go from your editing software, so from your edit, say you've edited stuff together and you've got shots that are 4 seconds, 5 second shots that are in there. You're going to send to After Effects for whatever reason you might want to use, for titles, graphics, whatever. But for this one, I'm bringing this in as raw footage, so it hasn't gone through an editing program yet. So I'm going to edit it here. Say I'm just going to do a quick little title for something, and I just know I want a shot. So when it's in here, it comes in as footage, and you can see there's composition, footage, and layer. We don't have a composition yet. All there is footage in the project. So I'll double click on that, and now it brings it up as footage. If you see it, if go to composition, there is no composition yet. So in there, you have sort of like a timeline bar, and it's a very long shot. You can see up here, it's a UHD shot. It's 2997, and it's 5 minutes 59 seconds. So it's almost 6 minutes long. HEVC is the codec, and that comes right out of a GoPro. But it doesn't mind. You could transcode it if you want, but I just want to grab a little shot from here. This is her on her scooter. Yeah, one of these sort of swirling shots would be fun. Yeah, so let's start here. You see there's an endpoint. And if I let it play, we'll just call that an out point. And there's an out point here that you can set. And now you can see that it's set a little in and out. And it's 4:17. And this can be edited. I can go down here and then reset my out point. And then you'll see that it's changed to 6 seconds. That's a long shot, but good enough for what we're doing. So now what I'm going to do is just grab this, and then if I pull it down and I drop it on this little icon down here, which this one, if I hover over it, you'll see create new composition. I can do that, and it'll create a new composition based on the in and out point that I did. So this composition now, if I go up to composition settings, is only 6 seconds long. So generally, again, you do this in your editing program, but for now we're doing it here inside After Effects because you can do a little edit, which is fine. So now, say I want to affect this footage in any way, say color correct it once it's in here. If I click on my layer, you see now I'm in composition. I'm not in footage anymore. If I am in footage, then anything I try to do here, it won't do anything. Well, I can zoom in and out, but I can't add anything. I can't change anything. If I create an effect on here, it's not going to do anything because I need to see it in the composition window. And this is where you'll get stuck sometimes. Everyone does. So color correction. So there are also tons of color correction things you can do here. So let's just play with curves. Say, I just want to make this look funky. So I've got my curves. I got RGB curves, and you'll notice that it has a stopwatch. If I want to change something over time, I can. But let's just do like a quick little deepen the toe. Let's give it more contrast, right? So pretty classic little contrast curve. And this is really the gamma. And if I want to play the highlights back a little bit. Anyway, this is just a deeper, darker version of what I was just doing. And you can see it's starting to slow down already, just doing a preview, but that's fine for what we're doing. All right, so once you got your effects done, if you look at your pull-down menu here, you have effects transform, so it's added effects. So the effects are down here as well, and if you double-click on the effects, of course, they come up over here, and that's right beside the project. So you can have a project open here, like this, or you can use the effects palette. And if you can't find one or the other, of course, just always go up to Window and then choose what you want. So, and this effect, you can do all sorts of effects, and you should play with this because, you know, there's all sorts of things that you can do, especially with shapes or anything you're bringing in. You can distort and change, you know, to the nth degree. It's tons of different things you can do. You add noise and grain, you can get rid of noise, you can simulate things, which you're not going to do on this footage, but if you wanted to simulate rain, things like that, and of course stylize. So if I wanted to look at and say, what does cartoon do? I'll click on that and say fill in edges. So what happens if I start playing with cartoon feet? Just start, and this is what you do with After Effects, you start moving everything around and seeing, you know, if I start changing the values of stuff, what does it do? And generally, if you gotta pull it all the way to the one way or the other, and you can see, there you go. Now it's starting to really look cartoony. And it's just using a basic called a median filter, where it's just mushing all the pixels together. But now you've got a really funky Richard Linklater movie going on here. And of course, this has edges, so you can say, well, the edges are only 1.5, so let's change them to 10. That'll accentuate everything. But you can see also that with 4K footage on a very fast computer, this is just slowing right down. If that does do that, though, if it does slow down on you and you're on a laptop that's older or whatever, one thing that I want to point you to is this here. It says full resolution right now. If I actually take this down to quarter resolution, what it'll do then is it'll make it a quarter of that resolution, and then it's much easier to work with. And it's still 4K, you see it's not real time, but it's way faster. So that way, if I'm just working and I just want quick previews and all that kind of stuff, I can just bring it on quarter view down here. And then later on, I can go back to full to see what it actually is really going to look like. But if I'm pretty happy with how this looks, and I'm confident about it, I won't have to look at it again until later. I can turn that down so that we don't have a problem. And even with 4K footage, right, if I go to half or a third, I'm pretty much going to HD resolution here, which it'll still look really good, but it'll work a lot faster. There we go. So that's we'll leave the color correction on. And if I wanted to, I could, just for the sake of making it pop, we can go to color correction and say tint or something, or tritone. See what that does. There we go. So highlights there. So we midtones put back into the blue. Now if I really wanted to make it funky, right, I can do that. And I can even switch which does what. I can tritone it first and then do curves. These are going to be moved around. Just playing around. And what you should be doing is just playing around. So say that is sort of what you want. You can also blend it with the original. But I can push this curve more. There you go. Just start playing with things. And now I'm going to create a little title. And for you, you could create shapes, titles, or anything like that. I'm just going to make a title called Scooter. And just like we've done before, is I can place that title. The reason why it's doing that again is I've got my caps lock on, and my caps lock on, it stops the rendering of anything. So that means I can move stuff around without it having to render. And turn that off, and there it is. Scooter. And I can go and change the font. That's a horribly boring font for a scooter, but that's all right. So I'm just going to use my selection tool. And one thing I want to make you aware of here as well is down here the thing called modes. Because once you add something over top of something, just like in Photoshop, anyone uses Photoshop, you can put things on different called blending modes. So right now it's just normal, so it's just normal text. But if I hit blending mode and I start saying, well, what does subtract do? It doesn't seem to really do that much. What about saturation? Oh, interesting. What about luminosity? So it's just going all the... And I could tell you what all these do, but usually for me it's trial and error of playing around with it until I find one that I really like, because it's doing all sorts of mathematical equations. The most popular ones we use in compositing are like screen or multiply, things like that. But every once in a while, hard light or soft light work. And again, you just sort of try to find the one that works the best for you. And then you can start changing the, it's kind of fun the way it's bringing all that in. You can also change the color of your font as well. So let's change it again. And then start to play around with those different methods until you find something you kind of like. Nothing here that's working out so great, but even then I can click on this and say I want to see what happens if I use green, or start playing around. Oh, blue is kind of neat. What level, etc., etc. Now when you play it back, you've got a basic little composite that you're working on, or a graphic design. And you can do this for your title sequences. You can do this for all sorts of things. I did set it back to full. That's why it's kind of chugging along now again. I'll go back to third resolution. So just like your tilde key will allow you to move around your laptop quite easily, these are valuable as well. This third resolution, quarter resolution, all that kind of thing. And now you can play around with your effects. You have a tritone effect here. It does have an effect of blend with original. So if I turn that on, that means like how much does it blend with the original? Right now it's at 0. So it's full on effect. But if I go back and I go through here and I say, well, let's blend it 90% eventually, because now I'm coming into my sequence. And now you'll see that it changes it over time. And with our scooter graphic as well, we can change our opacity over time, 0 to, let's go to 100 here. Whoops. Start at 0. Yeah, not fancy or anything at all. And if I wanted this to just drop down from the sky, I can say a position keyframe here. It's my end position. Notice I'm not on my selection tool. So I'm going to go back to the beginning, and then I'm just going to take this and I'm going to drag it up. Notice that if you drag it, it kind of goes all over. If you hold down Shift, it'll lock it. I can't turn it. Put it right up to the top. It does a nice straight line. And now I'm not winning any awards with this. If I select all my keyframes, I can easy ease them. So there are all sorts of ways that you can affect your footage, of course. I want you to play around with that kind of stuff and get to know it. And even if it's something just goofy like this, or it's very, there's no real design here. I do like the sort of the Tritone color thing that we started with. This font and everything's horrible. But you can start playing around with that and then get to what it is that you're trying to do. So what I really wanted you to get out of this is to go further from the last tutorial and into not only importing footage and understanding footage and how to read it and how to create compositions based on it. Live action footage, definitely best to bring in your footage. Say I want this one, and I'm just going to hit open. And like I said, if I just drag and drop this now, it's going to be a huge composition. So if I go composition settings, it's like, very long 17-second piece of footage. She was climbing the tree. Or was that 17 minutes? Sorry. Yeah, 17 minutes long. So this is way too long. If I just wanted her climbing the tree, then I would go up here, create an in and an out. But I would do that before I create my composition, because now I have to do it here. And there is a way to do it, but I'm going to show you next time because it's going to be too much information all at once. So yeah, trim it and then create the composition. And now what you want to do is, again, add a text layer, add a shape layer, whatever you want to this. Play around with the animation of it, and then export. So File, Export. And it shows up in Media Encoder, and we can encode in, a million different ways here. Right now it's H.264, but again, you can do ProRes, Blu-ray, HEVC, which H.265, which this is, or QuickTime, all that kind of stuff. Right now we're just going to do H.264. It's very web friendly, and we're going to choose one of the presets. So I'm going to choose YouTube 720 because that'll be fine for just a preview on the internet. And of course, what you guys want to do is check out for the output file. So where is this going? And again, it always starts in some sort of weirdo place, Untitled Project AME. Now I didn't save my project yet, so that's probably why it's doing that, but still you have to look here where it's going. Like say, where are you putting this? And then I'm just gonna say, no, I want it on my media drive, and I'll put it in the skateboard folder. And if I don't have a renders folder here, which I do have one, but if I didn't have a renders folder, I can create a new folder, make it a renders folder, and that way I put all my renders in there, and I'll know, and I'll just call this Scooter. So it's got the GoPro on it right now. Scooter, hit save, and now it's going to make that SSD2, skateboard, Scooter, and I hit start. Down here it'll show progress. Great. And if I go to my skateboard directory on that media drive and go look for it, it's right there, and I can point that in the right direction for my editing program. But right now, there it is, and that's all there is to it. Just like the shape layers and the text layers, and just learning how to use your keyframes, you could just keep building and building and building upon this. When you get into live action footage, the things like your overlay modes, your blending modes become really useful in all sorts of ways, especially if you're creating design, graphics, things like that. So this is one of those things that you can play around with ad nauseum until you get sort of a neat effect that you're looking for. So really good for all sorts of different things. And later on we'll get into using live action footage for, say, removing the GoPro stick, or the C stand or those sorts of things. But for now, just for design and for playing around and getting to know the software, I think we're on a right track, and hopefully it's simple enough for those who are beginners, and those who are intermediate, go hog wild with anything you've learned brand new here. So go forward and click away. You can't break it at this point. We don't have a specific thing in mind, so whatever aesthetic you want it to be, whatever playground you want to create for yourself, I think is a good time to just go wild and don't worry about, whether it looks good or it doesn't look good, and then just see what you get.